Thank you so much for tuning into today's sleeper mock draft that we're going to be running over at Footballguys. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. We are now partnered up with Sleeper. You can find our podcast directly in the Sleeper app. Just swipe to the right, hit that little podcast button, and you will see our podcast formulated in that feed. We are thrilled to be partnered up with a fantastic platform like Sleeper. And here we are today showing off their user interface a little bit. We are familiar with Sleeper as people in the industry. This is our preferred platform, but you might not be. So we're just going to show you a little bit of the Sleeper tools. They've got a really sharp ADP that'll help you out a little bit in your drafts. But before we go ahead and kick this draft off, I want to introduce Alfredo Brown and Dr. Vig. Alfredo, over at Footballguys, you can find some of his written content there as well as short videos. You are probably familiar with him. Alfredo, let everyone know where they can find you on social media and what you're going to be working on these next 2 weeks before football kicks off.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at the Pretend GM, and weekly I'll be doing the updates and training camp for some of the local teams down here in Florida, the Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars. Currently hosting a Dynasty podcast for the Fantasy Playbook, and just continuing to add to the sterling reputation that Dave and Footballguys has created.
Yeah, I mean, it's still surreal to me. I've been working here for almost 2 years now, and I was a longtime member before I ever joined the team. And it's just surreal to me that I get the opportunity to be such, an important part of such an amazing team. Really just feel blessed every single day to be doing this. Down at the bottom of the screen, you will see Dr. Vig. You can find Vig and Alfredo at the Pretend GM doing their thing over there. Vig, we have had a chance to meet up a few times now, most recently just a couple weeks ago in Canton. Pleasure to have you on the show, and welcome to the Footballguys Network. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media and what you are going to be working on.
Cool, man. Thank you for having me. Again, you can find me at Dr. Vig on social media. Really don't follow me, honestly. I just talk about medicine and medical education for the most part. But if you have questions about injuries and all those sort of things, always happy to chat about it. But you can find me wherever you find Alfredo, because I mostly work with him on everything.
Love to hear that. Well, everybody's here tuning in for the mock draft. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Dr. Vig, you got the 101 here, and then we've got Sam Wagman over at Footballguys with the 102. I'm drafting at the third spot. I thought Luke Sawhook was here at 4, but it looks like somebody else stepped in there. We got a good friend Taylor Cornell picking at 106. Alfredo, you're going to be picking at the 110. We got our friend Ahan, big fan of the Mailbag Show. Glad to see you in this chat as well. And then we got a few others that I'm excited to see where they go. This is a full PPR redraft, just so you can take a look at what these rosters look like. We are doing 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, kicker, defense, and then we don't want to bore you by drafting Donovan Peoples-Jones and all these guys late in the draft, so we kept it small. 5 draft spots, enough for us to talk about some sleepers without going over the top. But looks like everybody is online, so let's go ahead and kick this off. Dr. Vig, you are on the clock.
All right, this is really easy for me. I'm just going to take CMC. Everyone loves Taylor, but I'm not worried about CMC's injury, and I think he's going to be fantastic and gives me the highest upside.
Yeah, and this is pretty standard to see drafts kicking off like this. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, nothing too crazy there. And really where I'm going full PPR, I've got a pretty clear-cut top 5. I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Jamar Chase. I mix it up a little bit, but right here, my wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, who is going to be playing that Cooper Kupp role that we saw last year. But guess what? Justin Jefferson is younger. He's bigger. He's taller. He's faster. And I could see him having a record-breaking season just like we saw from Cooper Kupp last season. So here we are now with Austin Eckler going at 4, Cooper Kupp at 5, and Taylor Cornell. You can see the Bengals jersey here. We know who's going at 106. I don't think there's any shock here whatsoever. And there it is, Jamar Chase. Yeah, we got somebody in the chat here asking, are you taking fantasy football questions? Yeah, we're more than happy to take some questions here. No guarantee that we can get to them. We're going to be talking through our picks a little bit, but fire off your questions, Anthony, and we will do our best to help you out here. Alfredo on the clock with the 10 or the 110 pick, and we still got a lot of talent here. Interested to see who you go with, Alfredo.
Decided to go with Najee Harris here at the 110. It kind of came down to a couple different guys. Like I was looking at Travis Kelsey, really highly considered a wide receiver considering the format of the league. Man, I still love Najee and his ability to. I mean, I think he's got a really safe floor being a top 5 running back in this league with how much he's going to get used. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be a lot better than people think. Anything is going to be an upgrade over what Big Ben was last year.
So a lot better than people think. What is your win total for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let's hear it, Alfredo.
Oh, man. I think that everyone's expecting like a 6 or 7 win team out there. Maybe something a little bit more middling. I think that they're going to be in that double-digit win column. I think they'll probably be around 10 or 11 wins with that team. I know that they may be struggling with a young quarterback or Mitch Trubisky, and Mike Tomlin's just such a good coach. That offense scores points, and that defense could be really good this year with the addition of Brian Flores over there. I'm not shy from picking Pittsburgh Steelers players.
Yeah, and I gotta say, man, Mike Tomlin has never coached a team that has finished below 500. I mean, just an incredible feat. If Mitch Trubisky is the starter all year and this team finishes below 500, we just got to yank him out of the NFL, never let him take a snap again. We got to keep that streak alive. I cannot stand to see it happen. And I got to say, Alfredo, we did a mock draft a while back. We were doing an NFL mock draft, and you took a lot of heat for projecting Kenny Pickett to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The floor is yours, man. Go ahead and victory lap. Let's hear it, because you took so much heat for that pick.
What's up, man? Yeah, like everyone on the mock told me that was the craziest thing. No way could Kenny Pickett go there. And it wasn't even that like he fell. It was that why would you take Kenny Pickett there? And you take what you can get in these NFL drafts and even now in these mock drafts, and just when there's a good player available. Pittsburgh Steelers took the prodigal son of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, excited to see what he can do this year. Now, this is a little shocking. We saw Travis Kelsey slide all the way to 204. He is typically going in the first round, but I have been saying it all offseason. I have Travis Kelsey, Mark Andrews, and Kyle Pitts tiered very similarly, and here they go, just within a few picks of each other. I think this is how draft boards are starting to shake out now, where people are really warming up to Kyle Pitts. I mean, he was a 4th or 5th round pick a couple months ago, and now he is rarely making it out of round 2. So that is pretty wild to see. Here I am on the clock. Let me take a look real quickly. This is one of my favorite starts. I just talked about this. Justin Jefferson, Leonard Fournette, and Michael Pittman. Love that start. One of the reasons I'm willing to take a wide receiver early is because I know Leonard Fournette is going to be there in round 2. I have Leonard Fournette with a first-round price tag. If he was getting drafted top 8, I would have no problem taking him there. The fact that I can get him in the late second makes no sense to me. We're talking about a 3-down back on a prolific offense who catches passes and sees goal line work. I just absolutely love it. Dr. Vig, really like your start as well. You double tapped wide receiver or running backs, but then got Mike Evans in round 3, which I think is pretty fair. I think mid-second is a little crazy for him, but talk us through that start, because I like it.
Yeah, I'm not very upset about it at all. The problem is with this draft is you and Sam are ahead of me on the turn, which is kind of annoying and frustrating. So I would have loved Fournette, like you said, but I think getting Nick Chubb is great. I haven't double tapped RBs in a while, but I also haven't drafted at the 101 in a while. I just really like Mike Evans. I mean, everyone said this to the point where it's hard to call him underrated when everyone says that, but the dude is just the definition of consistency and paired with an elite quarterback. I almost went Pittman there, to be honest with you. I love Pittman, but I think a little more short thing with Evans, and so went with him.
Yeah. And what I'll say is, just talking kind of a game theory standpoint here, this year I love having an early first-round pick in a 12-team league. As you can see, it looks like the talent really starts to fall off in the middle of the 3rd round. I feel like this is pretty much where the break is. Mike Evans, Javonte Williams, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, Kyle Pitts, Leonard Fournette, these guys. And then right after that tier, once you start looking at Travis Etienne, Ezekiel Elliott, A.J. Brown, these are guys that can obviously hit and do well, but I feel like you're not getting quite as much value there. So I like the early first-round pick, because you can lock in one of those top 5. And then I really like the value at the 2-3 turn. When you're picking a little bit later, obviously you're getting 2 good picks here at the end of the 1st, early 2nd, but then you're kind of scrambling a little bit in the late 3rd, early 4th. Alfredo, I like you going with Keenan Allen here. He is a guy who has just perennially been a wide receiver 1 and is getting slept on a little bit this year. Do you have any concerns about him falling off the age cliff, or do you think that he just does what Keenan Allen does?
I mean, I think he absolutely could fall off the age cliff, but this is kind of going with like a mix here of safe players with high ceiling players. And I mean, Keenan Allen, I think Justin Herbert has a really, really good shot of winning the MVP this year. So if I can have his top receiver, I am all in on that. And of course, man, my other pick went off the board. I'm going to run out of time here. This is not fun.
I mean, that's tough, man. Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton, and DK Metcalf. I'd have been happy with any of those 3 where you were picking at 403 and just one.
In my head, I had Connor and Sutton. Those were my guys. And as I started talking, they both went off the board, and I kind of panic picked Waddle here, but I'm still happy with that. Now I'm able to have 3.
Is that some Dolphins gear that I see behind you, Alfredo?
Oh yeah.
Did I see Miami Dolphins stuff there?
Just a little bit, you know.
And DK Metcalf, man, going at 402. I just tweeted about him a little bit earlier. I mean, this guy is just a freak alien. What are we doing fading this guy? He's got some concerns with quarterbacks, but why is Deontay Johnson, who also has quarterback concerns, going ahead of DK Metcalf? DJ Moore is going to be catching passes from Baker Mayfield. Is that any better than what DK Metcalf is going to be getting in Seattle? I feel like we have just grossly overcorrected when DK Metcalf is getting pushed this far down draft boards. And that's typically a little bit earlier than we see him, but I still think Ahan made a great pick there, taking DK at 402.
And if I remember correctly, Dave, I think in the time span when Geno Smith was the starting quarterback with DK Metcalf, he performed really, really well. I believe he was still top 10 in fantasy scoring for those weeks. So, I mean, there's definitely a pathway for DK Metcalf to be productive and for some of these Seattle Seahawks players to still be good. But I do understand the risk that gets baked in there. And I think it kind of is with his ADP going all the way in the 4th round. This is a guy that I think everyone would have gladly been taking in the 2nd round had the quarterback been Russell Wilson. And so now we're kind of seeing that reverse effect with he and Cortland Sutton.
And just like you, very shortly ago, Alfredo, I was sitting here talking and had the 2 guys that I had my sights on, Brandon Cooks and Allen Robinson. Wanted either of those guys. They both went back to back, and I feel like I might have panic picked a little bit with J.K. Dobbins, but a healthy J.K. Dobbins is a stud, and that's the only concern. If we knew this guy had a clean bill of health, he'd probably be getting drafted in the 2nd round. Dr. Vig, after you make your 2 picks here, I want to pick your brain a little bit about J.K. Dobbins. For those that don't know, Dr. Vig, does a lot of fantastic injury analysis. I just kind of want to hear what your thoughts are on J.K. Dobbins and how he can bounce back. Still very, very young, but coming off a pretty gruesome ACL tear.
Yeah, so I think, J.K. Dobbins is a sort of great case study in what we can do with the marvels of technology. And I think the ACL surgeries, how we do them, the rehab have become fantastic. But we are still yet to see folks come back in year 1 after that major injury and do really, really well. I think that, if you're taking Dobbins, my expectation is expect him to start relatively soon in the season, but don't expect him to be at 100% until maybe game 5 or 6 into the season. And when I say 100%, I mean 100% of what he's going to be. I don't know if he'll get completely back to 100% of what he was before. But I will say we can expect excellent performance from him, barring any crazy re-injury. But next year, that 2nd year after the ACL, lots of great data to show that running backs do really well after that 1st year. So I'm excited to see what's in store for J.K. Dobbins.
So what you're saying is I just burned my 4th round pick. Is that what I'm hearing?
Possibly. The data would suggest that you may have burnt it for the first couple of weeks, but you still have Fournette, who's fantastic, and there's lots of RB value to had later anyway. I mean, so many people play 0 RB, so I think you'll be quite okay. Just don't expect him necessarily to be a stud in those first 2 weeks that he's back, if he even returns and plays in week 1.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get him as that late season hammer that helps push me through the playoffs in this imaginary league that we are playing in. We got a quick question here if you guys want to hit this real quickly. Anthony DiNapoli in the chat is saying, I'm in a 12-team auction league, half PPR, and I can keep up to $50 worth of players. Javonte Williams, 22. Jerry Jeudy, 20. Cam Akers, 11. J.K. Dobbins, 11. Ramondre Stevenson, 16. Who do you like? I was leaning all running backs. If so, who do you like? That's a fun question. This is kind of we see these on Instagram all the time, like build your favorite team, and here we have like actual auction money that we need to spend. Doing the math in my head real quickly here.
I was told there would be no math on this episode.
I'm trying to think. Jerry Jeudy gives 22, or I'm sorry, Javonte Williams is 22. I feel like that is just a you need to take that, and then I like Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, and Ramondre Stevenson. I think that this guy already has it figured out.
Yeah, I know Alfredo's picking now, but I like that too. And honestly, with up to $50, you can even keep the top 3 there. I feel like you can keep JK, it's keeper, so it's great at that value. And then it looks like Jerry Jeudy and Javonte too. I know he wanted 3 RBs, but you could keep all sorts of players if you get to keep $50 worth.
And that's a very interesting keeper strategy. I have never heard of that one before, where you get to keep an allotted amount of money. That's a lot of fun. I like that one. Alfredo, looking through what you're doing here, I mean, you are leaning into the quintessential hero running back build. You locked in Najee Harris and then just wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. I like what you're doing here so far. Talk us through this a little bit with Juju Smith-Schuster at pick number 5.
Yeah, ever since after round 3, I started tilting my face off over here. But I'm happy with the wide receivers I have. It's guys that typically have great PPR value, good floors, high ceilings. I'm back up again, and man, oh, of course, the running back I was going to go after is gone. So this is awesome. It's going really well for me right now. Man, I think I'm going to end up leaning into this just a little bit more. Oh, Dave. Oh, Dave, I'm running out of time. This is not going to go well.
Ding,
Yikes.
ding,
No.
ding.
Oh, I panic picked.
I mean, phenomenal value there. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm not upset with it.
A full round and a half after George Kittle. I just had a Marcus Grant and Cody Rear on my show, and we were talking about guys with similar ADP values and who we prefer. And I was talking about George Kittle and Darren Waller because these guys are typically going back to back in drafts. We get a little bit of concern that he might not be fully healthy, and all of a sudden he drops a full round and a half. Zach Ertz is going ahead of him. I think that you got a great value there. I mean, the upside for Darren Waller is overall tight end 1 if he's healthy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the big thing that I really like with my team so far is kind of that correlation of a lot of AFC West going on here. Keenan Allen, Juju Smith-Schuster, Darren Waller. There's just going to be so many points in that division. It's going to be nuts. And I don't know that any of these teams have a particularly amazing defense right now. So the amount of points being scored there, if everyone's healthy, everyone's active, this could be a team that's out there scoring a lot of points for me, especially with this kind of format, the 3 wide receivers in PPR. I'm all in on this roster right now.
Dismo just got me good. As you can see, you probably knew who my next pick was going to be. I had J.K. Dobbins, had Rashad Bateman. I was really hoping for that Baltimore Ravens super stack, and I got there, unfortunately. But I got a few guys in this tier, some wide receivers that I really like. So I will pivot to Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith just put up a fantastic rookie season. It's not every day that you see a guy put up the numbers that he did and then fall into the 6th and 7th round the following year. I get that A.J. Brown is there, but I think that Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, they had pretty similar rookie seasons. Jalen Waddle gets Tyreek Hill added in Miami. Devonta Smith gets A.J. Brown added in Philadelphia. Devonta Smith's ADP takes a huge hit while Jalen Waddle's remains pretty stagnant. I just feel like there's some sort of disconnect there that I can't really understand. But Devonta Smith has been one of my favorite targets all offseason.
I mean, there's certainly a psychology to it, Dave. I think that, there's something sexy about the rookie that goes out there and breaks records. And, there's something about the new coach, Mike McDaniel. And I'm a Dolphins fan, so listen, I've got my hopes up pretty high too. But I think that's what it is right now. I think there's a lot of hope being sold to fans. And whereas what's being pushed onto anyone that's looking at the Eagles is A.J. Brown's going to fly. Jalen Hurts is going to do X, Y, Z. Kenny Gainwell's coming up. And even Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith kind of becomes that lost guy that starts to slide down those boards.
Yeah. Part of me on the clock with my next pick, I almost want to take Joe Burrow just to spite Taylor. We know that with Jamar Chase and that Bengals pick. But as far as I'm concerned, this is when I stopped drafting quarterbacks. We're through the top 6 at this point. I feel like it's pretty flat from here on out, so I'm not too crazy about any of these guys. I got to do this one for the brand right here. Almazar in the early 7th. I just can't help myself at this point. And getting him as a wide receiver 5, I feel like that's where he should be. And, if he was getting, vaulted in the 3rd and 4th round and you're really counting on this guy as a wide receiver 2, might make you a little bit nervous. But drafting him as a wide receiver 5, you got nothing but upside there. I like that pick quite a bit, as I'm sure you guys already know.
I almost thought about just taking him to spite you. But I don't know. I'm experimenting with this idea, taking DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like he's someone who, again, he's like a top wide receiver with true wide receiver 1 potential every week that he's playing. So if he falls, I like to grab him when I can. I probably reached for him just a little bit, but I'm seeing a lot of people really reach for DeAndre Hopkins. Not sure if you guys are seeing that too.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I mean, we talk about this, the end of season, late season weekly finishes are so much more important than end of season. And, if you can get into the playoffs, which typically in a 12-team league, you've got a 1 in 3 shot of making the playoffs. And then if you got a guy like DeAndre Hopkins that you can just have as that late season hammer, I mean, that's a guy who should have a 3rd or 4th round valuation, but you're taking the suspension into account and you just stash that guy on the bench. And yeah, I love DeAndre Hopkins, and I've seen him climbing up draft boards quite a bit recently. Wow, I'm shocked to see Taylor Cornell go Kareem Hunt here.
Oh, yeah, Bengals fan, right? Yeah, that's...
Bengals fan, and he's got Jamar Chase. And I'm sure he's going to hate me for calling this out on the stream because now somebody is going to take Joe Burrow, but whew.
Somebody,
Drake
I
London,
wonder who.
Great pick here. I mean, this guy has probably going to be the wide receiver 1 of this rookie class. And, we've seen this. I'm not saying that he is anywhere near the level of talent that Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson is. But the college game is starting to resemble the NFL game so much now that there isn't that crazy learning curve for guys anymore. And now we just see people coming in and make immediate impacts. So where I used to shy away from wide receivers in redraft leagues, I am very prone to taking them now.
Yeah,
Damien
I think
Pierce.
that Drake London. Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about rookies that can perform in year one. I'm surprised Damien Pierce fell this far. I mean, he should be going first round. Apparently, I was sitting here counting. Okay, how many running backs have been drafted, and I'm getting him still at essentially RB3 value. So I'm perfectly happy with getting him on that 7-8 turn here. I was wondering if I should wait to see if he'll come back round 8. I didn't want to get burned again on my running back.
So who are your running backs right now? That for an RB2, I mean, that's solid. If you're going anchor, that is not bad whatsoever. I mean, we saw this guy yesterday. He just looked incredible. I did a best ball draft this morning where Damien Pierce went in the 4th round. He is shooting up draft boards. And why not? Let's look at the target the competition in the backfield for him. I mean, we've already seen he did more in yesterday's preseason game than I think Rex Burkhead or Marlon Mack have done in their entire career. So it seems like the job is his.
Yeah, it really does. Sorry, go ahead, Alfredo.
No, I was going to say, I mean, Damien Pierce, like he's going up against guys that really, when have they ever been the guys to have the workload in their offense, no matter what? Rex Burkhead at his age, Marlon Mack with his injury, it's just not there. And man, I think that he's one of those guys. I think he's going to surprise. He's already surprising a lot of people, but I think he really is once he gets out there on the field. And I'm going to
10 seconds on the clock, Alfredo. Who are you going with here?
No, I got who I know who I'm going with, and I think it's going to surprise some people. Let's have some fun. It's a mock. Let's have some fun. I think Cordero Patterson is. I mean, he traditionally probably wouldn't have been my pick there. Man, I didn't want to split that Chiefs offense with CEH and Juju. I'm not touching Miles Sanders or Antonio Gibson with a 10-foot pole. And Damian Harris and that whole New England backfield just scares me. So yeah, Cordero Patterson. It just seems like a fun pick, man. It's a mock. Let's have some fun. A guy that could honestly get lined up out in wide receiver a lot this year too, more than ever before.
And of course, he got Joe Burrow to drop back to him.
Unbelievable.
I almost did it out of spite. I almost did it.
The ball's on Taylor. Gotta love that pick. Well done, Taylor. Putting together a very nice team over there. Oh man, and there goes Antonio Gibson, Damian Harris, Sky Moore. Wow. Those are the 3 guys that I wanted there. And now here I am on the clock, totally tilting with no idea who I am going to pick. Again, it's a mock draft. We're having some fun. Why not pick another guy who I think has the rookie wide receiver 1 in his range of outcomes? I absolutely love George Pickens.
Yeah, I'm really hating drafting after like Sam and David on the turn because you guys keep taking. That was my neck. Oh my. Okay, like there's no one on my queue anymore because you grabbed everybody. Oh my God, what do I even do? All right, let's see.
The 30-second clock is our biggest enemy. It's not even each other.
Yeah.
It's the 30-second clock because then the queue gets.
And we're at a massive disadvantage because we have to talk through our picks. Everyone else is just sitting on the toilet making theirs by themselves, and we're actually on a live stream trying to talk through what we're doing and keep this somewhat entertaining.
Oh my God, 10 seconds. I hate this.
All right, I'm just going to go. You have one. I could be on the toilet as well.
I just remember watching I just remember Tyler Lockett getting all the balls thrown at him last year while Russ was hurt. So I'm just going to go with that for now as I continue to tilt in a way. I don't roster half of these players in any leagues that I'm in. You know what? I'm going to go all in on Seattle and take my high upside rookie running back.
Thank goodness. I thought you were taking Dwayne Eskridge there.
All right. My gosh.
That's a little bit better.
But one thing that's nice here, and I think we brought it up, and anyone who's listening, I think, is that mock drafts are places where you can experiment. Like I'm not rostering tons of these players in any other redraft managed league that I have. But you know how you finish a mock draft and you just look at it and go, I feel pleased with how that went, or I'm really upset with how that went. I feel like the more I mock, the more I get to do these experiments and realize how I really feel for my real drafts. And so yeah, have fun with it. It's been a blast.
Now, Miles Sanders, that's a guy I don't think I have drafted in a single league this year. I want nothing to do with him, but in the 9th round, I mean, we got to look at the contingency value here. The big knock right now on Miles Sanders is that he's going to be splitting carries with Kenneth Gainwell. And really what we're probably looking at with Miles Sanders realistically are all the low-calorie touches in Philadelphia. You know, he's going to be seeing the groundwork in between the 20s. He's probably going to lose goal line work to Jalen Hurts. He's going to lose passing down work to Kenneth Gainwell. But we know this guy is dripping with talent. What happens if something happens to Kenneth Gainwell? Then all of a sudden, Miles Sanders is a 3-down back on a team that loves to run the ball. So he's a guy where I kind of had to step away recently, reevaluate the draft board and say, maybe I put Miles Sanders back on my board because of how far he is sliding.
Yeah, you know what, Dave? The same thing happened to me the other day in a home league draft. It's actually same thing. 9th round. Miles Sanders ended up being my RB4 on my team because I was just like, I don't really want him, but he's there, and I kind of have to take him. So it's just honestly, and in these drafts, you can also start to think of it this way too. I think that it's not just the analysts, the fantasy analysts that are out on Miles Sanders. It's everyone, and all it takes is that one good game for him to have, and then someone else, a running back needy team in your league, is looking to get a running back, and you got Miles Sanders sitting there for him. All right, I am back on the clock, and I'm going to be diligent with my time here. I'm not trying to run out again. All right, let's do it. I'm going to take the plunge into quarterback land.
Hey, that's a good pick right there, man. Dak Prescott, I mean,
there we go, kids.
Why can't this guy finish as the overall QB1? They were the number 1 offense last year. I mean, he's got it in his range of outcomes. And now 2 years removed from that injury, Dr. Vig, I'm sure you can attest to this, but I expect to see Dak start to run a little bit more. I mean, he had that in his bag of tricks early in his career. Didn't run much last year, but you can understand the trepidation coming off of that gruesome injury. I think that we see Dak Prescott get somewhere to that 300-400 yards rushing, which will really elevate his floor and ceiling.
Absolutely. I think you brought up something great that people don't talk about a lot, which is how much sports psychology plays a role. And it is hard, both speaking from personal experience and with like just watching these guys. It is hard to come back after a bad injury. And you brought up Prescott, but Joe Burrow is another guy who I think a couple years out from his injury, a 250 to 300 yard rushing season from Joe Burrow is not out of the question at all. In fact, I think he does it. And Dak Prescott, again, I think this is great value. And he could be the absolute overall QB1, loaded with weapons on the squad, and he himself is a weapon. So completely agree with your take there, David.
And, I talked with Stefania Bell last offseason. She came on my show and we were talking about some injuries, and she talked about having an interview with Carson Palmer when he was coming back from his knee injury. And what Carson Palmer said, and I'm paraphrasing Stefania Bell, who was paraphrasing Carson Palmer, so not sure how far this is getting down the telephone game, but she said something along the lines of Carson Palmer, when he'd be standing in the pocket, as soon as a player would start rushing towards him, she said he would basically black out and just see this wall of color coming at him, and he would just collapse, that he was just so terrified of taking that hit again. And you start having, I don't know if PTSD is the right word, but you start having flashbacks to the rehab and the surgery and the pain and all that. And she said that it took him years to get over that psychological hurdle of being able to throw while he had a defender coming at him.
And that's completely real. I'm not an elite athlete and I don't have the mental fortitude, so I'm not going to suggest that's the same. But Alfredo was there when I shredded my knee. I tore my ACL, my MCL, both menisci on that leg. And it took me forever, even though I was fine, to really feel comfortable jumping and running, or like, and when I say jumping, I mean like going for that rebound. I like stopped my post game entirely, because you're right. It is such a huge hurdle. And doesn't matter how much mental fortitude you have, it can be so hard.
And Dave, we got about 10 seconds into that game.
I'm going through PT right now for shoulder surgery. And just last week, all I had to do was hang from a bar. That was it. Just put my hands on a bar and lift my feet up. I said, yeah, no problem. And then you actually get to, having to do this, and your mind is just screaming, like, do not do this. It is the psychological aspect of rehabilitation is something that, like you said, isn't talked about nearly enough.
And these teams do hire the elite, sports psychologists and therapists and counselors and psychiatrists, because they've realized it. I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing return to play too. It is becoming more and more recognized as a huge part of what we do and what we need for our players. So I'm glad it's getting the recognition. I'm glad we're talking about it. But again, as we move further and further out from injury, to go back to where we started, I think seeing folks like Prescott and Burrow this year, I think we might be in for a bit of a surprise in how much mobility, or how much you might see these guys just take off and go on a run.
Yeah, because I mean, when you watch Joe Burrow in college, or even when you watch him his first couple of weeks as a rookie before he got hurt, he is a very good scrambler. We're not sitting here saying that Joe Burrow is Lamar Jackson. I don't think that anybody is making that sort of comparison. He's not going to rush for 1,000 yards, but like you said, 200, 300, 400 yards is well within his range of outcomes, because he's got some surprisingly quick feet.
Oh man, can we talk about something really quick here? I'm just seeing at the 10:08 who was selected, and it's Isaiah Pacheco. So we talk about like like I say it kind of like tongue in cheek, right? Like, I'm not even sure if he's going to be good. Like, I don't even know if that's a good pick or a bad pick. And we talk about the excitement with Damien Pierce and how everyone has gotten so excited. I think the difference is Damien Pierce at least has a really obvious avenue where he can get starter snaps, and he was a little bit of a higher draft pick. Pacheco, if I'm not mistaken, 7th round pick, and he's still Like is he the third? Is he the second? I don't know. Like, and Isaiah Pacheco wasn't a guy I was super high on either. I know he's got a lot of great metrics, but this is very interesting. And it's not a knock on the pick for Dismo, because it could actually be a fantastic Pierce. Oh, Ahan, you're so wrong.
No.
But thank you.
Ahan, I love your draft, but Pacheco is not better than, oh my God.
So I'm going to say, I was in a draft recently. It was a 14-team league. And in the 7th round, Matt Kelly, the podfather, took Isaiah Pacheco and was thrilled, thinking that he got him at a fantastic value. I mean, there is a cult mindset when it comes to Isaiah Pacheco, and it's so easy to make the comps to Darwin Thompson, and we can go back to Niall Davis. It feels like every single offseason we get so hyped about a Chiefs running back, and really none of them have hit since Kareem Hunt and Jamal Charles. And every player is different, and I don't want to sit here and try to helmet scout, but at the end of the day, it's like, how many times are we going to keep falling for these late round rookies in Kansas City?
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because I'm even just looking at this board right now, and it's not necessarily just the KC rookies. Like, it's rookies in general. Like, we got Christian Watson
Romeo
going in the
Doubs
11th round
in the 11th.
before. Yeah, we got Dobbs. You got Rashad White. Someone took Khalil Herbert, and now you are my least favorite person in the mock draft. So thank you. Oh my gosh, that was the top of my queue. But you know what? I'm going to take another guy that I really like, and let's get some Nico Collins.
Love it.
I think that's a sexy pick, man. In round 11, Nico Collins. Oh, I double dipped on the Texans though, so that's probably not too sexy, but I really just love that value there of getting Nico in the 11th.
So I just did a Houston radio show this morning, and we were talking fantasy football, and they asked me for my biggest sleeper, and I said, I promise I am not trying to butter you up because I'm on a Houston radio show, but Nico Collins is a guy that I cannot get enough of. And for me, it's the comps to Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, year one, was injured. He was playing behind T.Y. Hilton, never really fully got up to speed. Same thing with Nico Collins. He dealt with some injuries. He was playing behind Brandon Cooks. But when you look at both of these guys, day 2 picks, 6'4", 90th percentile for size adjusted speed score. They both drew exactly 63 targets. They both excelled at contested catches. I mean, there are just so many similarities that it seems like the writing is on the wall for Nico Collins to have a massive breakout this year.
Yeah, and you know what? One cool thing is that now I believe it's the offensive coordinator for the Texans, Pep Hamilton. That was the same guy running the Michigan offense when Nico Collins was there. So there's going to be a lot of these things. Like, there's no delay in playbook stuff. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's just got to go out there and play. And I'm stuck between two guys here in my queue. And you know what? I'm gonna do this for the brand because I got an awesome Football Guys video short coming out, and I'm gonna be talking about each of these guys. So let's do it. Joshua Palmer, round 12. Is there such thing as a wide receiver handcuff? Because that's what I have right now. If Keenan Allen or Mike Williams miss any time, Josh Palmer is a massive wide receiver handcuff for a quarterback that should be a top 2 or 3 MVP candidate this year. And I'm really, just as much as I love the Nico Collins breakout, the Josh Palmer breakout seems just very, very likely as well.
Now, I'll just point this out because we talked about Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert's a guy that I would have taken at 11:03. The only reason I took Kenneth Gainwell here is because I see an opportunity to lock up with Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell in the 9th and 11th round. I'm locking up the backfield on a team that is going to run the ball 350 to 400 times this year. So that was my thought process. But Khalil Herbert, I know you and I, we have both been beating the drum for Khalil Herbert, Alfredo. He's a guy that everybody looks at him as a handcuff with where he's getting drafted in the Alexander Madison, Rashad White tiers. But I think he's going to have standalone value. I think people are going to be in for a big surprise when Khalil Herbert comes out week 1 and sees 40% of the touches out of the backfield.
Yeah, I think that Khalil Herbert is basically just AJ Dillon with normal sized thighs. Like, that's it. Like, he's just a guy that has regular quads. So, like, we're not all super excited about him. But, like, I loved Khalil Herbert coming out of Virginia Tech. And he was one of those guys, like, kind of every year for the rookie drafts, you plant your flag on someone. And you're like, all right, well, if that hits, I did a good job. And it did. And it's just, I get it. David Montgomery is, he has been a better runner in the league, but last year when he got the opportunity, Khalil Herbert was better than David Montgomery in so many metrics. Like, it was just crazy. And so when he was a starter, he was very, very valuable for fantasy teams. They're going to be having that 2 running back system with Luke Getsy there. And it's the last year of the contract for David Montgomery on a team that it's stupid business to try to invest a bunch of money in running back when you have to essentially rebuild everything. It would not shock me if going into next year, the running backfield over there in Chicago is Khalil Herbert at the front with a guy like Treston Ebner as the receiving back. So I think that not only is he great this year and giving you standalone value for redraft, I think that he's going to be great for Dynasty. And that's one of those guys that I really believe in buying low right now while you can.
Yeah, I agree. I think Montgomery is one of my biggest sells right now in Dynasty. I think that he just ends up hitting free agency next year, and with all of these guys coming in from college, and a lot of really good free agent running backs hitting the field market next year, I'm afraid that he just ends up in a position where he's going to be in a split backfield with almost no upside at all. You can sell him right now as a pretty
Mhm.
highly valued running back, and I'm afraid that it just falls out from under him after this season. This is my biggest reach of the draft so far, KJ Hamler. But I mean, especially it seems like his ADP should have seen a huge bump when Tim Patrick tore his ACL, because now the floor is set for KJ Hamler to be the wide receiver 3, and his speed and his ability to blow the top off a defense compared with Russ Wilson's, deep attempts. Russ Wilson, even with what was it, a mallet finger on his throwing hand last year, still had the third most yards in the NFL on deep attempts with an injured hand and missing multiple games. He still has that in his bag of tricks. And I think that KJ Hamler's skill set just matches up perfectly for him. But I also want to talk about my pick before that, Aaron Rodgers. I got him as the QB 12 off the board.
Wow.
Aaron Rodgers was the QB 6 last year. He was the QB 3 the year before that. He's coming off back-to-back MVPs. When you look at the sample size with Matt LaFleur, he has been significantly better without Davante Adams. Am I crazy here for thinking that Aaron Rodgers is still a top 10 quarterback?
I'll go because
Sorry, Vic, you go because I got to focus on my
not
pick
at
here.
all. It's absolutely bonkers to think that he isn't. And actually, he was on my queue. You'll see that I sort of panic picked into Matt Stafford, who I think as a QB 13 is still incredible value. But no, Aaron Rodgers, I don't understand. It's not just because you lose Davante Adams does not make you unable to throw the ball to receivers. And yes, he doesn't have the same quality of receivers, but I think he's wildly undervalued. I mean, you have him at a great spot, but is he the QB 12? No way. I think he's another top 10, maybe even top 8 easily quarterback in fantasy. And I think that's a fantastic pick for you.
Yeah, I mean, the splits without Davante Adams are crazy. He averages over 50 yards more per game, more touchdowns, less interceptions. And I think that, he kind of felt pressured to force feed the ball to Davante Adams. But when Davante Adams isn't on the field, he goes through his progressions and he just is an all-around better quarterback. And with Lazard in the 7th round, I think I got a great stack there. I love that Aaron Rodgers, Allen Lazard stack. I think that it's going to surprise a lot of people this season.
No, that's fantastic.
You like Aaron Rodgers and you like this Allen Lazard guy, David. I would never ever have guessed that.
Yeah, and as a Bears fan, it's tough for me to say that, but I've just watched this man beat us down for pretty much half of my life. I can't do anything except bet on Aaron Rodgers at this point.
And I think
if you're going to bet on someone, if you're going to bet on anyone, you bet on the guy who consistently wins the MVP.
Alfredo, talk me through the Kenny Galladay pick, because I tweeted out the other day. I said, I don't care if I'm at pick 200.
I have no words, Dave. Dave, I have no words. I have no words. Kenny Galladay. I don't know why.
Big. He's got a big contract.
Yeah.
He had one good season a few years ago. That's pretty much where we're at with Galladay.
And I'm out of time. So, yeah, sure. Robbie Anderson. Let's do it. Why not?
We got a nice core of I was going to say wide receivers, but I'm just going to say wide receivers.
It's like an island of misfit toys of wide receivers at this point. It's like you have like the really hyped up young guys that should be really good this year, and then the guys that were really hyped up about 3 years ago. So we'll see what happens with this roster. Thank God this isn't real. I'm not excited about this.
Yeah, this wide receiver value though is really insane how much value you can find. My wide receivers 6, 7, and 8 are DJ Chark, Jarvis Landry, and Zay Jones, all of whom may be the wide receiver 1 on their team. And maybe I'm reaching with Zay Jones, but I read everything written about the Jaguars. I spend way too much time on the Jaguars. I watch so much training camp videos. And it's not that we spend a ton on him or Christian Kirk, but Trevor Lawrence and Zay Jones just seem to have an incredible connection. So he's my sort of sleeper pick for the Jags in general. So I'm kind of excited. And I want to talk about Jarvis Landry for just a second as Dave picks up next, because everyone loves the return of Michael Thomas. And it's just, we have talked a lot about this, Alfredo and I and many other folks. And he is an elite talent, but that injury is so not great. He did not look great when he came back onto the field. Like the videos of him running and stuff, he just didn't look comfortable in anything that I saw. Alfredo, maybe you can chime in as a scout who looks at these things even more than I do. But I think Jarvis Landry is yet another person who, between him and Olave, really have incredibly high upside. So I'm not upset with taking these high upside guys in like the 11th and 12th round.
Speaking of high
Yeah,
upside, I went KJ Hamler and Donovan Peoples-Jones in my last 2 pick. I'm looking at
Whew.
nothing but upside in these rounds.
Did you not promise us that we were not going to have Donovan Peoples-Jones being brought up in this draft?
That was
I'm very
the
upset
teaser
with this.
going into this, that we're not going to have Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you lied to everyone.
Yeah, I just can't help myself. Yeah, it's I love the man, and obviously that we're not going to be looking at a full season from Deshaun Jackson, but tell me that Donovan Peoples-Jones doesn't slot right into the Will Fuller role in a Deshaun Watson offense.
Yeah, especially if you're looking at something late in the season of a guy who could just give you that little extra boost. I mean, that's typically what ends up separating kind of your middling teams from the ones that end up winning throughout the playoffs. As long as you get to the playoffs, you're good. Last year I won a league going 7-7, right? I was a very middling team, but then you get to the playoffs, you get hot, and you've got a few guys on your team that can keep you winning. And if there's a player like Donovan Peoples-Jones that's going out there and he's playing like a wide receiver 2 or 3 every week with Deshaun Watson, then that could be the little thing that kind of just lifts you to victory.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I hate you, David. Evan Ingram, my other really. I shouldn't have said anything about the Jags. Ugh.
And I feel like I waited, and probably could have gotten Evan Ingram if I waited for him to come back around the turn. And looking at tight ends, I feel like his ADP on Sleeper is pretty low. I mean, I had to scroll down to see him down here with Austin Hooper below Hayden Hurst, but I have Evan Ingram in my rankings ahead of all of these guys: Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Tyler Higbee, Irv Smith Jr., Noah Fant. And it's possible that these guys do finish ahead of Evan Ingram. But if they finish ahead of Evan Ingram, it's going to be because they have 8 to 12 touchdowns on the year. I feel like looking at somebody a little bit safer, that's what Evan Ingram is. I think this guy really profiles to be possibly the number 2 guy in targets on the team. We know Doug Peterson just loves force-feeding tight ends. And it wasn't just Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert and Travis Kelsey. Richard Rodgers, when he was the only healthy tight end in Philadelphia, was getting force-fed 8 to 9 targets a game. So I think that Evan Ingram is a guy that just can't really understand why he's getting pushed down draft boards the way that he has been this offseason.
I don't.
Well, there's a lot of hate because he just doesn't catch the ball well. That's been most of the hate, is the drops and the camp drops. But I mean,
and it was that Sunday night game where he had the game-losing drop. And on Sunday night, they've got 100 different cameras pointed in super slow-mo where you can just see it hitting his fingers and bouncing out. And it's been ever since that game. Everybody has hated Evan Ingram because he had a game-losing drop in primetime.
Which I think is kind of unfair. If you watch him again, it's only a small sample size of training camp videos and preseason. He's actually looked pretty darn good. He did have some drops here and there. But, I think again, sports psychology, coaching players, I think that's something that can easily get fixed. I think Evan Ingram truly will be quite fantastic. And I agree, he very well could be the number 2 target. We saw how much Trevor Lawrence made. I mean, Trevor Lawrence made Dan Arnold reasonably fantasy viable in certain games. He was a plug and play sort of tight end for some games. I think Evan Ingram could be quite fantastic.
Love to hear that. Yeah, he's been one of my favorite late round targets. And what I like to do if I draft a guy like Evan Ingram, and not so much in managed leagues like this, I mean, you're just streaming pretty much at this position, but talking some best ball theory here, I love drafting a guy like Evan Ingram, who I think is a high floor because of the expected volume, and then pairing him up with a guy like Tyler Higbee or Hayden Hurst, a guy that probably isn't going to see that volume, or Robert Tonyan, who went shortly after, but a guy who is probably going to have a decent path to catching a lot of touchdowns. And I feel like having 2 of those, 2 very opposite, very different types of tight ends, I feel like it balances out pretty well over the course of a best ball season, because when that guy doesn't have two touchdowns in a single week, you've at least got Evan Ingram, who's going to give you, a 5-6 point floor every single week and raise your weekly floor at that position. And this is wild, man. Looking at quarterback values, I thought I had a great deal on Aaron Rodgers, but here we see Derek Carr going off the board in the 16th round. Tua, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, all still available. We say it every single year, but man, our quarterback's deep this season.
I'm sorry, Taylor's last pick made me laugh a lot.
Who did you pick?
Is that Kevin White?
I believe so. And like we said, just have fun with the mock drafts, right?
Yeah, that's like a wide receiver's handcuff, right? Like how many injuries do you need before he becomes a fantasy relevant player for you? But yeah, have fun with mocks.
And I just want to point out what I did here. When we did this mock, we set it up where you need to have a defense and a kicker. I didn't draft a defense or a kicker. And if you're drafting this weekend, I don't think you should draft a defense or a kicker. Nope. And Alfredo, explain why, because I know you took the same approach. Why are we avoiding defenses and kickers right now?
Yep, I did it here. Did it on my home leagues all the time. You don't take the defense and kicker because you know that throughout these remaining weeks before the season happens, players are going to get injured. You're going to want to have players on your team. And then all these defenses, you end up just dropping them and streaming new ones anyways. So just hold on to as many players as you can, see how their injuries break out, see what you can do. You can even use these extra pieces on your roster as trade pieces, do a little 2-for-1 action before the season starts, clear up your roster, and then you can grab that DST for week 1 and just find whoever's playing the Jets or something like that, and you'll be good. Don't worry. It's not as big of a deal. Don't freak out about defense.
And that's the exact approach I took. You see, my final round pick is Sony Michelle. Sony Michelle probably isn't going to see a much, significant workload right now, the way that things are. But, what happens if tomorrow in practice, Chase Edmonds tweaks an ankle? Then all of a sudden, Sony Michelle is a guy who is going to be getting drafted or at least being started as a top 30 running back going into week 1. So I think it makes sense, just still with some preseason games to be played and still some practice, go ahead and swing for the guys at the upside. And I see, Jay Fabes 98. I see he did the same with Deonta Foreman, and I think that's the approach to make. And then you can, Thursday morning before the games kick off, drop one of those guys at the very end of your roster. I'll drop Donovan Peoples-Jones or Sony Michelle, somebody like that, and I'll plug in a kicker or a defense. Let's talk through these real quickly. Vig, let's start off with your team. Kind of walk us through your picks and tell us, what you liked, what you didn't like, some regrets you may have, some picks that you really like here. Just tell us how you're feeling about this team.
All right. I would give myself like a 5 out of 10. It's probably not the most favorite I've had, but not the worst. I don't get a lot of experience at the 1. For some reason, my luck is always 10, 11, 12. So this was kind of fun. And I love what you said about value really kind of drops off. There's like a huge tier drop off at the beginning of round 3. And so if there's no 3rd round reversal, as was in this case, I kind of like that. I like my start. I don't double tap RB often, but McCaffrey and Chubb, I don't think I can really go wrong. I think Mike Evans is fantastic. And I'm just looking at my wide receiver depth though, and not even including like D-Hop, who again, as you said, as a late season guy can really come in. He could be like a fantasy playoff / fantasy championship game winning sort of guy for me. I just have wide receiver depth everywhere, and my running backs aren't the strongest. I have 3, and Kenneth Walker is my 3rd. But I just love all the wide receivers I have. I love getting Stafford where I got him. Would have loved to have maybe had Aaron Rodgers before, but like Stafford is my wide receiver 13 and like the 13th round. I'm not at all upset about that. And I think I have a good mix of pretty safe floor and really insane ceiling guys here. So all in all, not super upset. Fun experience drafting from the 101. I probably should have done more mocks that way. And I got to see, I have not touched Amari Cooper anywhere, but he's still kind of maybe going to be the number 1 wide receiver on a not so great offense, but I'm okay with this. Actually, I'm okay with sort of how my draft sort of played out.
I hate your whole team, Vic.
And we'll talk from a dynasty standpoint here, even though this was a redraft mock. I pointed this out recently, but I think Amari Cooper is just one of the most underrated guys that you can get, whether redraft or dynasty. And the comparison that I made, and people are going to hate this, but just bear with me for a quick second here. Since 2019, Mike Evans is averaging 7.58 targets, 4.69 receptions, and 71 yards per game. Amari Cooper is averaging 7.51 targets, 5.9 receptions, and 67.4 yards per game. These guys are putting up nearly identical production. The difference, of course, is that Mike Evans gets a ton of touchdowns and Amari Cooper hasn't. We talk about it all the time, but touchdowns are not predictive. They're not sticky year over year. And Amari Cooper is a full year younger than Mike Evans. So I think that we have just been perennially sleeping on Amari Cooper. He's one of my favorite values. I know you said you haven't drafted him a lot there, Vig, but I think that you got him as a great value there. If you didn't take him at 6'12", I would have been, I thought about taking him at 6'10", but if you didn't take him there at the turn, I would have taken him over Allen Lazard quite easily.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's kind of why I went for him. People we talk about volume being king, and this is going to be Jacoby's number 1 target on that squad. He is going to be the wide receiver 1. He's going to get the most targets on that squad. And you're right, he's only 28. He hasn't gotten to that wide receiver sort of ceiling they talk about. And if his touchdowns go up even ever so slightly, he had like 6'5" and 7 touchdowns, or like something like 8 touchdowns at most over the last few years. I think Amari Cooper could be insane value.
Yeah. So like that pick, I think the one thing I would have changed with your draft is rather than Landry, Zay Jones, Duvernay, and Van Jefferson at the end, I probably would have added a few handcuff running backs, some guys that have some decent contingent value. But I love the start of your draft. I think through round 9. I think you absolutely knocked it out of the park. Just nitpicking a little bit at the very end of the draft, but overall, I like what you did, Big. Alfredo, talk us through your team a little bit here.
Yeah, so I mean, I loved being able to get Najee Harris as, what is he, the 2, 3, 4, 5, now as the running back 6, where I think his floor should be running back 5, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I have him ranked as either RB3 or RB4. So I love where I got him there, and I wanted to. I have noticed I've started to lean a little bit heavier into the wide receivers, especially in a 3 wide receiver league, PPR, just like this. CeeDee Lamb, I think that we talk about guys with potential, and I think that he has all the potential to be the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy this year. He's just going to get peppered with targets. It's one of those times where you search for this: does opportunity meet talent under good conditions? And yeah, it does. So this is going to be one of those teams where CeeDee Lamb can line up anywhere. Dak's going to have to get the ball out quick, and CeeDee Lamb could really produce. Keenan Allen's just safe with Justin Herbert. Jalen Waddle may not give you that same upside that he had last year with Tyreek, but I think that Mike McDaniel is going to have a good creative way to get the ball in his hands. And Juju Smith-Schuster, another guy, could once again be the number 1 wide receiver for his team with a really good quarterback. So I was really happy getting those 4 wide receivers. Darren Waller kind of just fell into my lap. I haven't really drafted him anywhere, but I was certainly happy with him. Damien Pierce, that's the RB1 overall right there. So I was really happy to get him in the 7th round. And I think that I kind of started to spiral a little bit out of control. I lost myself there in round 8 with Cordero Patterson on a panic pick. I don't know what else I would have done different. Maybe, for the brand, I would have gone Kenneth Walker at that point, and hopefully he comes back healthy. Vig's got me all scared with the hernia thing. And Dak Prescott, I love being able just to stack him with CeeDee Lamb. And I think I got some guys, Darrell Henderson, who could actually end up being the RB1 for the Rams, because we really don't know what's going to happen with Cam Akers and this Achilles and how that's going to end up getting split. And he may have to come off the field. And then just getting these, high upside guys, and then some like old, ugly, nasty veterans. Kirk Cousins is a guy who I think could easily be a top 12 quarterback if Dak's having bad weeks or Cowboys are struggling. So I was pretty happy with my team all throughout.
Yeah, I like what you did there. And I didn't even realize during the heat of the draft itself that you ended up stacking up Dak and CeeDee Lamb. I really like the pick that you got with Dak. I thought that was an amazing value. But to pair him up with CeeDee Lamb, that can be a lethal duo this year. Why wouldn't CeeDee Lamb get 180, 190 targets? We know that Dallas wants to air the ball out, and CeeDee Lamb is far and away the guy there with. So I really like the way that turned out. I'll walk through mine really quickly here. I think the 2 picks that I probably like the least are J.K. Dobbins. Panicked a little bit there with Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson. Really wanted those guys. I had my eyes on Chris Godwin as well, who went a little bit before then. So not too crazy about that J.K. Dobbins pick, but as an RB2 in the late 4th round, if he can stay healthy, I think that he really returns some value. Another misstep that I think that I made was at 6'10" when I took Devonta Smith. I like Devonta Smith, and I feel like he's a great value there, but I picked Devonta Smith thinking that Kyler Murray was going to wrap back around. Crazy of me to think with Swagman picking right behind me that he was going to make it past me. But unfortunately, I wish I had taken Kyler there, because there is a pretty big tier fall off. And I was kind of surprised after Kyler Murray. Usually you won't see any quarterbacks going for quite a few rounds after that. We saw Joe Burrow go shortly after. We saw Russell Wilson go shortly after. So quarterbacks were kind of scattered throughout this entire draft. We didn't see those, clear-cut tiers like we normally do. But that's why you do these mock drafts, because every board is different depending on who you're drafting with. Different players go in different spots, and this helps you kind of get a feel for it. But I do like my wide receiver core quite a bit. Getting Allen Lazard as a wide receiver 5, getting George Pickens as a wide receiver 6. I don't even know if I needed KJ Hamler and Donovan Peoples-Jones at that point. I probably should have just gone with tight ends and running backs and kind of filled out the rest of the roster. But overall, I think everybody here did pretty well. And we will be doing more of these mock drafts as the season approaches. Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, next Thursday, so September 1st, Alfredo will be back with me, and we will be doing another mock draft, and we will be joined with Sigmund Bloom. Everybody on the Football Guys channel watching the show knows who Sigmund is. That is going to be a very, very fun show. And then we're doing another one 2 days before kickoff on Tuesday, September 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to tune into these, because these are a lot of fun. Check in the YouTube description right now. You will see a link where you can download the Sleeper app. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we are thrilled to be partnering up with them. Such an awesome brand to be affiliated with. Before we sign off, though, one more time, Alfredo, let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you're able to find me on Twitter at the Pretend GM, and all my work Football Guys is available on footballguys.com. You'll be able to see all of the video shorts, the articles coming out, and we got these training camp reports coming out each week on all 32 NFL teams. It's a great way to keep track of these players and know all the latest news about these players right before going into your draft.
Absolutely. Be sure to give Alfredo a follow. He is a ton of fun on Twitter. Dr. Vig, same thing. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media, what you are going to be working on, where they can find your injury reports, because you put out some really good stuff there.
All right. Well, first off, thanks to Football Guys and both of you Football Guys folks for having me on. It's a ton of fun. Obviously worked with Alfredo a lot and get to see meet you a couple times in person. But you can follow me, Dr. Vig on Twitter. Probably the best place to hear about I haven't written a lot about him, but the best place you can follow any of the injury stuff is just look at Alfredo's sort of timeline, and he posts videos of injuries where I've worked with him. I think there was one for the Fantasy Playbook most recently where we talked about a bunch of injury bounce back guys. You can always just shoot me a question on Twitter. I love to give my explanations and rationale behind why I think someone's injury is significant or not significant. But yeah, man, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Of course. Thank you for making the time. I know it's a busy time of year, so anytime anybody is willing to guest on any sort of podcast or show appearance this time of year, I'm extremely appreciative, because I know we are all up to our ears in work, less than 2 weeks away from kickoff. Very crazy to think about. But you can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. That's Kluge. Drop me a follow there if you haven't already. And most importantly, smash the subscribe button, youtube.com/footballguys. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this video based on how you are feeling about our draft. Drop a reply if you got any questions. You can slide in my DMs at Dave Kluge, or you can DM us on Twitter at Football Guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week with another mock draft powered by Sleep.